International Financial Center, or the AIFC, is the new global financial hub. It is a center with a high concentration of advanced technologies that applies contemporary methods of regulation based on English law and international arbitration rules. Watch the program Astana International Financial Center to learn about the country's most ambitious project. In today's episode, who and how regulates the activities of the AIFC? AIFC's new regulatory system, the experience of other states in building enhanced supervision structures. In the process of constant dynamic development of the world economy caused by globalization, the relationships between financial market participants require constant monitoring and regulation. It is the mechanism of regulation that should ensure control over the state of the financial market, as well as the behavior of its participants in accordance with the adopted norms. At the same time, an important aspect of the financial market regulation is the observance of the freedom of activity of all market participants, both in terms of strategy choices and geographical presence. The list of the most influential regulators of the world financial markets includes the National Futures Association of the United States, NFA. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, is considered the second organizational structure in the United States after the NFA, whose mission is to protect the interests of the market participants from unfair competition, dishonesty, and fraud. In Europe, the most credible and powerful regulator of financial markets is the Financial Regulation and Supervision Authority, FSA. In Russia, the central bank is in charge of this domain. In Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, financial operations are subject to the rules and requirements of respective national banks. All these structures oversee various sectors of the economy. Thus, the National Bank of the Republic of Kazakhstan is responsible for the stability of the stock market, insurance, and banking sector. It monitors the work of microfinance institutions and other organizations. However, direct regulation of the AIFC is beyond the competence of the National Bank.
Самым важным органом, который регулирует стратегические вопросы развития Международного финансового центра Астана,
the most important body that regulates the strategic development issues of the AIFC in accordance with the constitutional law is the Management Council of the AIFC. The chairman of the council is the President of Kazakhstan and his Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan.
Его заместителем является премьер-министр Казахстана.
Increasingly, international investors are expressing dissatisfaction with the regulation of their activities in global markets. Competing with New York, London, and Tokyo for financial flows, the developed and developing countries are taking targeted steps to increase the attractiveness of their markets for foreign investors, issuers, and intermediaries by liberalizing regulation, improving their legal systems, and establishing a modern infrastructure. Due to the lower legal difficulties of doing business and more attractive conditions for young professionals, new international and regional financial centers are pulling back some of the financial flows from the United States, Britain, and Japan, gaining more weight in the financial world. Asian stock markets are growing at a faster pace and can already compete for liquidity with European and American sides, which means that they become attractive for issuers. That is why regulation within the AIFC is liberal. Moreover, it is combined with the recent state policy of liberalization and gradual elimination of the active role of the quasi-governmental sector in the management of the company.
Есть структуры, которые сами определяют, допустим, регулятор определяет, какие нормы регулировать.
There are structures that determine themselves. Let's say the regulator determines the regulatory norms, and so the stock exchange has a self-regulatory committee that monitors all activities. The court determines the law, and this is English case law. It is very important that all these institutions will be independent in their decisions. One of the main successful factors of the Dubai International Financial Center is that it has become an independent regulatory body of financial services. The DIFC regulatory regime was developed on the principles of basic legislation of the English law and international standards. In addition, it has a mandate to inspect operations for asset management, futures, tracking of the work of the banking sector, and investment funds. After all, the modern world exchange market is a huge entity. Brokers, traders, dealers, and other members of the trading platform are closely connected with each other, and such an integrated system needs constant control over legality, observance of rules and regulations, resolution of disputable issues. The regulatory bodies themselves in the practice of the Anglo-Saxon law are independent. It is very important because if they are independent, they are recognized throughout the world. Then it brings high authority to our center. In addition, regulation of market entities similar to the Dubai Financial Services Authority will be handled by the Financial Services Regulatory Committee. Its mission is to provide a regulatory and legal framework that meets international criteria and guarantees high standards of behavior, as well as the creation of a safe investment environment to ensure investors' trust and confidence in business. The AIFC press service informs that main priority of AFSA is the promotion of friendly attitude to business and the creation of an ecosystem for its prosperity. The overall goal of regulation is to create wealth based on the principles of honesty and transparency and in accordance with the rules that are equally applicable to investors and consumers. In accordance with the best world practices, we have established a committee for the regulation of financial services, set up a board of directors that includes leading world regulators, and appointed a director general. Financial markets act as indicators of the modern economy. The better and more efficiently they function, the more rapidly the global economy develops, whose operational mechanisms benefit from rich variety of directions of capital flow.
I would expect that Astana can enter the main index in 2018, and then the progress up or down depends on what international people think of Astana and how well the development as a financial centre actually goes. I think one of the key things is that you can't be too impatient. Rome wasn't built in a day. London has been doing financial centre for 600 years now, and these things do take time.
The Financial Services Regulatory Committee will act as a financial regulator, developing a regulatory framework for the AIFC participants, carrying out licensing and taking decisions on compliance of AIFC participants with the high international standards set by the Astana Financial Services Authority.
The most important asset that any financial market, indeed any financial institution has, is its reputation and the trust of its customers and investors. And regulation plays a really important role in helping people have trust and confidence in the financial system as a whole. So what I'm looking forward to is trying to help the Astana Financial Services Authority develop its regulatory capacity and develop its regulatory system.
The board of directors of the Astana Financial Services Authority Committee includes Stephen Glenn, an Australian regulatory and forensic financial analyst with extensive experience in managing financial markets and capital markets; Gregory Tanzer, a qualified coordinator and barrister with extensive work experience in Australian financial regulators; Angela Knight, the chair of the Office of Tax Simplification, former CEO of Energy UK, and former Conservative Party member of British Parliament; Ian Saville, a former economist at the Bank of England, responsible for sustainable portfolios in the bond and money markets, currently an independent director and consultant at the European Central Counterparty Limited, EuroCCP; Masood Ahmed, president of the Center for Global Development, former head of Department of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, of the Middle East and Central Asia; Akash Deep, associate professor, a senior lecturer in public policy specializing in finance, faculty chair of the Infrastructure in the Market Economy Executive Program, and co-chairman of the Faculty of International Finance at the Harvard University.
Well, my role is as Chief Executive Officer, and I'll be leading the regulatory team. Our role will be to develop the legal framework first and foremost, and then to establish the regulatory regime around that, and to develop a framework that we can facilitate business within the centre so that we can grow the financial services industry not only within the International Financial Centre but also within Kazakhstan generally.
The main objective of the AIFC Committee on Financial Services Regulation is to ensure the stability of the financial system on the territory of the International Financial Center, and to ensure the functioning of financial markets on the principles of transparency, fairness, and efficiency. Along with the best practices of the Anglo-Saxon model of the UK, Singapore, and the USA, the practical experience of other world-leading financial centers has also been studied and implemented. In addition, the International Financial Center of Dubai, as the main partner of the AIFC, is going to provide the necessary support.
I think it is an extraordinarily good idea and proposition of Kazakhstan to develop this centre with a regulatory authority which is seeking both to adopt international standards, to effect a quality regulator which externally will show exactly the sort of standards and the sort of confidence that international investors are looking for.
Creating a new regulatory system of the AIFC, as was mentioned above, refers to the international experience. Thus, the top management of the International Financial Center constantly concludes memorandums of cooperation with the regulators of various international financial centers. These documents lay the foundation for the exchange of experience in the management of financial services markets and supervision in the financial sector. In particular, the memorandums presuppose the exchange of information on the regulation of financial markets for Islamic finance and green technologies. About several dozens of different agreements were signed with different companies, regulators of different countries, both with government agencies and with specific companies around the world. The AIFC seeks to provide a favorable regulatory environment for becoming a regional Islamic hub for Central Asia and CIS by 2020. The creation of a holistic plan for the development of Islamic finance includes Islamic banking products, Islamic capital market instrument, sukuk, and Islamic financial instruments, takaful and ijara. And this is not the only innovation that the AIFC regulators intend to bring in. Everyone knows that market participants, fintech startup companies and innovators, when creating new technologies, may face regulatory barriers to their application. Therefore, the regulator should take an active position in risk assessment and support the implementation of technological innovations useful to the economy and society by creating legal grounds for their application. According to experts, one of the tools may be a regulatory sandbox. This mechanism will help to establish technology testing. Speaking about financial technologies, we can say that our work moves in two directions. The first direction is the creation of a regulatory legal field, and we have already created the set of rules for the so-called regulatory sandbox, which allows companies to try their tools in the real market. The essence of the sandbox is that applicants, for example startup companies and financial institutions, can test their products in a controlled environment with less stringent requirements for meeting obligations. At the end of the application period, the product leaves the sandbox and begins to function in the large world, where it already requires full compliance with all standards. The rapid spread of these programs entails both new opportunities and risks. The AIFC regulator needs technically competent staff. This will ensure that the examination of applications is carried out carefully enough. In addition, the regulator can notify potential candidates about what products are particularly interesting to it, and thus not only to form the targeted pool of applicants, but also to stand out from other sandboxes due to specialization.
And all of that, this is a very unique window of opportunity in time and geographically, and I'm very pleased to see that we are taking on this opportunity.
In the recent months, a number of countries including Britain, Abu Dhabi, Australia, Russia, Hong Kong and Singapore have announced their intention to host such a sandbox. They all share a common idea, stimulating the growth of financial technologies within the established framework. Today, financial institutions are going through hard times due to capricious markets and tightening regulatory oversight. Revenues are falling. The number of jobs and wages at best do not grow or even decline at all. However, fintech startup companies enjoy success and popularity. These companies are increasing their turnover so quickly that regulators are trying to attract them to their side with relatively free regulatory models and other initiatives. So the race is already in full swing. Perhaps some countries will be able to declare themselves winners in it, but in fact the main prize will be given to consumers.